Okay.
So we're back, and I think we're halfway through, so I'll pass it on to Coco. Yeah.
Okay. The next question is on regarding solving climate change. Why do you think shifting the diet is like the ideal method to solve climate change, and what are like some alternatives to this?
Mm-hmm. So scientifically, obviously, it's well, firstly, it's actually something you can actively do 3 times a day. A lot of the other solutions involve abstaining from flying or stopping doing things. And actually, switching to a plant-based diet, firstly, it's the most impactful thing in terms of emissions, water usage, land usage, everything. But it's also something that we have to do. It's not like we can just stop eating. So yeah, it's impactful in that we do it 3 times a day. It has the most impact. And it's also impactful in that it can be the easiest switch as well. You don't have to stop driving necessarily, because obviously people still have to get to work. People still have to go see their family across the world. We can't stop flying necessarily. So yeah, it's one of those things that you can change without losing anything.
What was the last bit to your question?
Like, what are some alternatives you think to shifting the diet?
Mm-hmm. So obviously we do focus on kind of reducing plastic waste as well. But when we talk about, plastic waste in the ocean, that's kind of degrading our oceans as well. Predominantly the plastic waste in the ocean is from fishing gear, ghost fishing gear as well. So that's also kind of comes back to plant-based food.
It's funny how it all does actually fall back to plant-based food. Mm-hmm. All of these sort of other initiatives and other alternatives to help,
or food in general. Mm-hmm. So reducing food waste is also a huge kind of reliever on the climate, at the same time as choosing organic produce as much as possible as well. Those things are also massively beneficial for the planet. Yeah, so like I said, it all not necessarily all plant-based, but yeah, it all comes back to food, and switching to a plant-based diet is the single biggest thing we can do.
And we do talk about food because from a social media perspective as well, it's people want to see it. It's trending, so you have to sort of follow these trends.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of valuable for the climate that is the way it is, just purely because this has the most impact.
But in terms of other alternatives that we sort of focus on, I mean, zero waste obviously is a very big part of that.
Mm-hmm. We do also do kind of news coverage on sustainable initiatives. So, there was a newly announced kind of electric airline that's going to be launching in the next 10 years, which is also very exciting. Like everything and anything. Kelp farming is also an amazing initiative for carbon dioxide drawdown as well. Kelp farming is amazing. We also talks about, we haven't talked about this yet, but we have a documentary coming out that talks about biochar. So when we talk about, for example, the pollution in northern Thailand, I'm sure you're very aware of that, being in Chiang Mai, a huge portion of this is due to corn biomass, right? And corn biomass burning. And most of this corn is actually going for animal feed. So this is actually still fueled by the animal agriculture industry. But a huge part of that is these farmers don't have the resources to get rid of the biomass. So their only option is to burn it. And obviously it's very detrimental for the climate. But at the same time, they don't have another option. So firstly, obviously, not just in Thailand, but around the world, because much of the feed that goes to these animals and then this meat is actually for export anyway. So obviously switching to a plant-based diet is the first thing, but also this biochar is a very interesting solution for farmers to not only improve the quality of the soil for their future yields, but also to stop this burning from happening.
Well, it's beneficial for the climate and their own health and safety, because it prevents farmers having to use herbicides, pesticides,
at least as many.
Yeah, which in lots of cases that does happen, and that causes a lot of health issues. And also the biochar does help bigger, greater yields year on year. Yeah. So I mean, it definitely has its place, biochar, because like Joe mentioned before, the infrastructure around Chiang Mai, the reason why it's so bad for burning is because it's mountainous regions. So lots of the farmers
And there's not
grow
the
corn.
smallhold farms as
Yeah,
well.
very, very small whole farms. It means that there's no infrastructure for people to move their biomass out.
Mhm.
So burning it on site is the only alternative. So biochar containers that are placed on site is a great alternative.
They basically turn the biomass into this very valuable kind of char that you can then
Black
use
gold, I think is used.
I mean, these are things that I mean are more solutions in terms of that particular industry. In terms of personal choices, I mean there's things that I think everyone kind of knows about, you know, using public transport as much as possible, but I do think that's a very difficult one in Thailand because the public transport system is not amazing. You can't get from A to B just using one mode of public transport. So that's also a great small step, is choosing public transport when you can.
Also,
EV
sorry,
tuk-tuks around Bangkok are great as well.
Move Me is great. I mean, I'm not sure if we can talk about specific brands, but Move Me, based in Bangkok, is an EV tuk-tuk company, and they have sort of pods that you can use and get around. But going back to the biochar, it's an alternative, sure, but whether it's an alternative that we can actually personally do, not so much.
It's
really.
more down to organizations, governments funding these kind of initiatives, and also all the farmers getting on board. So that's a solution to one problem, but it's not necessarily one that we can influence unless we are, you know, part of that organization, or infrastructure. So like small, like we don't talk about these as much, but you know, being as zero waste as possible, using natural products, using public transport as much as possible, always carrying your zero waste containers, choosing organic food when you can, when it's affordable. These are all small things that we can do, and I think that you know, we will work towards, and everyone kind of knows that these are more sustainable choices. But we do focus on plant-based food purely just because it has an astronomical impact in comparison. Yeah. Sorry, we can't hear you again.
Am I audible like this?
Say it again.
So these are very unique solutions that I've also not heard in the past. But regarding biochar, I'm in Chiang Mai, so I know a lot about this. But could you maybe elaborate more and like maybe clarify some whether it's effective, so maybe like how it works, maybe like those things?
Okay, so I actually can't tell you the science of it. There's some very interesting documentaries, like The Need to Grow is a very interesting documentary that actually is mostly about biochar, and it's also is interesting to watch as well.
It's not regional for Chiang Mai, but for the ins and outs.
It just explains what biochar is.
Yeah, I mean, essentially biochar is the burnt mass of the biomass material, and the biomass is all of the bits that the farmer can't sell.
Yeah.
So if a farmer has a big farm just full of corn, they'll harvest the corn, and then everything else will just be chopped down.
Yeah, so stalks, the actual husks, the if they're selling the corn as kernel, also the cob itself, but also everything that's left on that field is currently, in most cases, because there's not another option, being burned.
And there's a lot. There's a lot.
I should say it's not just Thailand, it's also the surrounding countries. So there have been some some restrictions put into place, and some fines put into place as well, which has actually moved the burning and the corn growing to the outskirts of the surrounding countries. But
the wind blows from north to south.
But it's in that region, so northern Thailand and the surrounding kind of countries. The reason that it's so bad at that particular time of year is because when the corn is harvested, obviously, like Max said, all of this biomass is left, and the only option, firstly, to get rid of the biomass is to burn it, and secondly, to make the soil fertile or good again to grow on, they burn the actual field as well, which makes the soil more fertile. And that's obviously partly to blame for that is the amount of pesticides and chemicals used on that farm in the first place because of all the monoculture, right? So because they're just growing corn, it's not good for the soil and the pesticides and stuff.
Joe said this before. I mean, it's not the fault of the farmers. That's the problem. They're put into this position where it's very difficult for them to escape this routine, and because of the geography of Chiang Mai, it's very difficult for landowners to move that biomass out from the piece of land that's high in a mountain to somewhere else to be burnt in a more sustainable way.
And it's not financially viable for them. So I mean, I think that a lot of people will demonize the farmers when we should not be doing that, because they have no choice. In most cases anyway. So yeah, the biochar basically is I think there's like a special biochar machine, which means it's all kept inside. There's no like smoke like there would be if you're burning it, but it just turns it into this, it's basically charcoal that comes out in the end, and it's super highly nutritious for the soil. And what the farmers can then do with this biochar,
They
not
just
only
sprinkle it on the
not
soil.
only does it stop them having to burn the biomass, but it's also basically a soil fertilizer. So they've removed one of their problems, is burning the stuff, and then they've got another solution for another one of their problems, which is making the soil more fertile. So that's I think that it needs quite widespread support from a lot of companies and the government to get it kind of on mass usage, but it's a very interesting solution to that problem,
and a way that we can personally, sort of going back to our own personal choices that we can make, rather than sort of organizations that have to make those changes. Personally, we can shift that supply and demand. So if the demand that is away from animal-based food, or food that might be going towards feeding animals, then the shift in focus for what they are actually going to be producing on that farm is going to change.
So that the actual the pollution in Chiang Mai and northern Thailand is actually kind of new. I mean, since the 1980s is kind of when it started getting really bad, and that's predominantly because the amount of meat that's being produced is kind of skyrocketed since the 1980s, which means these huge corporations who make meat are demanding very, very cheap animal feed. And in some regions, they grow soy. For example, in Brazil, they grow a lot of soy for animal feed. In Thailand, they grow a lot of corn. And that is why there are so many farms now who are selling corn, monocrop corn for animal feed, purely because these big organizations can promise them that they will buy that at a fixed price. It's not a very good fixed price for them. It's not a very valuable thing, but they know they're going to sell it to those corporations, because those corporations know that they're going to need animal feed for their kind of animal-based farms.
But there are alternatives where we can shift that demand and have farmers growing pulses, for example, which would be incredible for the soil. So not just for the soil, but for us, for the climate.
If the demand suddenly goes down for meat and goes up for pulses, we would need less land, less people would be growing monocrop animal feed plants like corn and soy.
Healthier population.
So yeah, it's all about supply and demand. The power lies with the people who buy food, basically, when it comes down to it.
Yes, I totally agree that like the people, like the consumers, actually have the power to shift the supply and demand. And yeah, so I'd like to like take it back a little to the Root the Future organization, and like to ask, like, how do you guys plan on moving forward with the Root the Future organizations? What do you envision for the future? Yeah.
I think for us, we want to do more of the same, but more and on a bigger scale. And I mean, our end kind of goal would be to have a Root the Future organization in every region. We would love to have an organization in the US, in Japan, in Australia,
everywhere.
Just all, like, everything we do is not for profit. Like, we don't make a profit from this. Everything we do goes back into the projects, and that is the way we want to keep Root the Future. We just want to do that on a global scale, do festivals, awards, do the BTS video campaigns, like billboard campaigns.
Keeping it not for profit makes it very transparent in terms of agenda. We don't have one. We just want the world to be a better place. So for us, there's no like future expectations from sponsors or anything like that. We just need to make sure that we're covering costs for every campaign that we do. But yeah, like Joe said, we just want to make sure that Root the Future is everywhere, so we can encourage and promote more sustainable activities and really give people the power to know that they can make a difference.
Yeah, I also think that there are a lot of global organizations, but it's really great to have localized ones. So what we would love in the future is to have the future Thailand, and like for every country, because not everything works when one place, it works in another. So, you know, the types of food will be different, the strategies will be different based on what the government policies are. Yeah, so it would be great if we can have, I mean, one in every country. Let's just go big, shall we?
Yeah, why not? It sounds doable.
Sounds like a great goal, actually, because sometimes solutions, the feasibility of solutions is kind of like dependent on the government, like each country's government infrastructure. So I totally agree with that. So can you talk more about the awards that Root the Future has received, as well as like the process of you guys like getting or being nominated as part of like those awards? Yeah.
I don't know which awards you're referring to.
I mean, we have created the Plant-Based Food Awards.
Oh yeah,
but I'm not sure.
I think
Oh, okay.
no
So
more plant-based food. Yeah, plant-based food award. Sorry for the unclear message. Yeah.
okay, that's something just that we have that we wanted to see, just to foster growth in the industry, because it's we talked about this before, but when we launched the Plant-Based Food Awards, we launched it at the end of the J Food, the J Festival, at the beginning of the J Festival, just to try and make the two synonymous. But the idea of the Plant-Based Food Awards is just to really show how delicious and amazing plant-based food is.
But the important thing about the Plant-Based Food Awards is also community galvanizing. We want everyone to be excited about plant-based food. So we actually, like, we don't choose who the winners are. We basically just get the whole community. I mean, at the moment, we only have the capacity for Bangkok, Chiang Mai, Phuket, but in those regions, we want people in the community to vote for their favorites. And
so those favorites would be, for example, best plant-based burger, best meat, best Thai dish, best restaurant with vegan options, plant-based fish, plant-based milk. It sort of covers not just products, but restaurants as well. And that's just regional.
And that really was the reason that we did that. Was I think we were just in the office one day and Max said, wouldn't it be really cool if we could just like have the people vote for their favorites? And that was it. We were like, that would be cool. Let's do that.
And last year, a couple of years ago, it was like 20,000 votes spread across, I think, maybe 10, 20, 30 different categories.
But it also, like, one of the main missions was it, firstly, not just to get people to know the best foods as well, but because we're not excluding any restaurants. Like if somebody in a non-vegan restaurant has a vegan dish and they think, I think this could be the best vegan burger in Bangkok, we want to include those. Firstly, because we want to get the non-vegan restaurants excited about plant-based food having an actual demand. And second, we want to make the restaurants who don't have any plant-based options feel like they're missing out.
Yeah.
So that we want to encourage them that there is a market. It can be delicious. You can have options in your restaurant and there will be a market there for it.
Essentially, we want to show that the big pain point is accessibility for vegan plant-based food is accessibility. You can't, just walk out of your school and go to a restaurant and order some plant-based food, or depending on the restaurant. But we want to show that plant-based food is everywhere because accessibility is key. You don't want to have to go out of your way to try and do something. It has to be easy. And with accessibility comes competition, then comes affordability. So accessibility is really very high up. So for us not to exclude any restaurants that, because they weren't vegan or vegetarian was a very key point here.
We want them to also be excited about plant-based food, even if they're not plant-based restaurants. They have even just one plant-based option. And obviously they can, have people have their favorite customers vote for their dish.
And these restaurants and products, they don't have to apply to be in the awards. The way that the voting works is that the voter just types in the name of the restaurant or the product.
It could be anyone.
Instant vote.
But yeah, it was a very good way to get the community, not just the community, everyone talking about plant-based food, and also actively participating in congratulating these kind of businesses.
And we held an awards ceremony at the end, which I thought was great.
I think the last time it was like a mini Oscars that we did, which was fun.
I think you're not audible again. Sorry.
Am I audible like this?
No. Do you want to? scoot in a little, please.
I really like the idea of the awards that you have, because it not only showcases like the restaurants that are already doing really well in the area of veganism, but also brings more people into the community. But I just wanted to like tie it back into like the beginning, like how did you grow your organization and what was it like from the beginning?
So at the very beginning, we had, like we mentioned before, the kind of VC that helped us start off, basically, which made getting started very easy because we had that automatic support, which was very valuable to us. It meant that we had the freedom to do the projects that we felt the most valuable, knowing that we had that support. But I mean, it was very surprising that we had such interaction and such community participation from the very beginning, even when we just started.
I think the reason why we grew so quickly is because we were providing value. We were actually providing something that people wanted to see that was missing. So for us to show valuable information to people that was missing was quite was a huge gap in the market.
But for that first year, it was very exciting. Like I said, we had lots of projects and we had the freedom to pursue the projects that we wanted, purely to get the message out in a fun and entertaining way. And just from the ideas that we had in our mind, we could just do it, which was very valuable at the beginning. Obviously, the longer we've been running, we have to think about how we can stay afloat, how we can cover our costs. Makes it a bit more complicated and a little bit more laborious. But yeah, the first year was it was really amazing, and we're very lucky to have had such great support.
I really love your story of like how you all started and like the path that you took to get to like the point that you were. You mentioned like your documentary earlier. I'm wondering, like, have you done something similar to this in the past, and like, or like what spurred you to create like a documentary?
Okay, this is kind of a long story actually. So we what was it, 2021? I think that was the year that the restaurants closed for like the 1 millionth time for COVID, because we didn't actually experience COVID very much in 2020. You guys probably know that. 2021 was the year that it got like worse, and restaurants really struggled in that year. And I remember it was maybe the fourth or fifth closure of that year. And we know a lot of the restaurant owners, and they were saying, we're really struggling. I think we're going to have to close. And we were like, oh, it's so devastating for the community to have these sustainable businesses go out of business because of the pandemic. So we were trying to think of what we could do. And so we came up with a way to raise money for the restaurants, not charity, but basically getting people to buy meals for their future selves. So these restaurants would have upfront capital to keep themselves afloat, and then they'd have, and the people who were buying the vouchers could then spend them later. So it was just a way to kind of keep them afloat. And that was basically me running a marathon across Bangkok, and we got people to buy vouchers that way.
Nutter. Let me just jump in here. She says just run a marathon. Like this is the end of July, so it's very hot. It's during the pandemic, so running with a mask. All the parks are closed, so running across and all over Bangkok with cars, with these huge pavements that you've got to jump. They're like cliffs. So I mean, you do yourself an injustice just saying that it was a marathon. It's impressive.
But that was when we realized that that kind of extreme, I only had 2 weeks to train as well, which was actually quite stupid, but that kind of extreme physical kind of project was actually a very effective way of getting people on board and to be able to spread a message as well. We found that was a very effective kind of campaigning project.
People want to see yourself going through some sort of physical.
It gets people interested. So we actually came up with this idea to cycle from Chiang Mai to Phuket in 10 days. Just Max and I to physically cycle on bicycles, which is like almost 1,600 kilometers. And we thought it would make firstly, we wanted to do it to raise awareness about why the burning in Chiang Mai is happening, and also why kind of ocean degradation is happening down further south. So there was a social media campaign in that way to get people, because we did a live video every day. We did a giveaway on every single day of the cycle. So that was one of the reasons why we did that. And then also we had a documentary cameraman with us the whole time. Firstly, because if you tell somebody you're going to do this stupid thing with only 10 days, which is quite dangerous, people are probably going to watch that. And if you can capture those people's attention at the same time as presenting some very important topics, it can be a very effective way at getting information across and spreading information about solutions as well. So
yeah, essentially, we are showing people that we're putting ourselves through hell, and at the same time talking about the burning.
So that was where that documentary came from. That cycling campaign, we did that in February. The documentary should be finished by the end of the year, but basically the documentary will just be the day-to-day and what happened on the cycle. And during that time, we talk about why the burning is happening, what solutions there are. We interview experts on, we interview Greenpeace, we interview experts on ocean kind of conservation, and it's kind of interspersed with all of that. So that's where that came from. Long story short, we found out people like to watch us suffer, and we capitalized on that.
Luckily we survived.
Max had a very dangerous he fell off his bike and it was really bad.
It was quite bad.
I was hyperventilating and crying because I thought he was going to die. It was a whole thing. But yeah, it should make for good TV.
Had
I guess.
A golf ball on my head and cuts down my side. I mean, that's what people want to see, apparently. So if we can show the people what they want to see and talk about, why the burning happens at the same time, then that's our job done.
Yeah, definitely. That's super inspirational, and I'm looking forward to watching it if it gets released by the end of the year. So I mentioned like the work that you've done in like Chiang Mai and in Phuket. Could you tell like us like more about the work that you've done outside of Bangkok? Like what else have you done just outside of like the main area?
Yeah, we launched a market in Chiang Mai back in July?
It was last August. We did a sustainability and plant-based market in Wat Niman in Chiang Mai. We actually
40 vendors total.
I think it was 50 in the
50.
end. We did a clothes swap there as well. We had Fashion Revolution there doing a clothes swap. We have been meaning to do more in Chiang Mai, but the reason we wanted to do that in Chiang Mai is because every time we go there, we're like, oh my God, the plant-based and the sustainability community, the slow fashion community, they're so vibrant in Chiang Mai. There's so much here. So we just wanted to put together a kind of community bringing together event, which is what we did last August.
And honestly, it still shocks me how many people are interested and enthused about wanting to come to these types of events, and not just to taste the food, but to interact with everybody else who are like-minded.
It's also interesting whenever we do an event, the venue is always very reluctant to comp us the space. So the way that we do our events usually is that we ask the event space to give us the space for free, because we're not making a profit from the event and we just want to spread positive messages. They're usually very reluctant at the beginning to be like, yeah, we'll give it to you for free. But every time we've done an event after, they always ask for us to come back, because they can see from these types of events, the crowds are huge and way bigger than their regular events, which I think is really encouraging to see more people at these types of events than they would have their regular events.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, in terms of, we haven't done anything necessarily in Phuket yet. We have a project that we're working on now,
we can't talk about,
which encompasses actually the whole of Thailand, but that won't be finished for another 6 months. So you have to wait and see for that one. But we'd like to do more. I mean, it would be amazing to do a market down here in Phuket.
Yeah, I think there's we're also planning. We do a weekly running club as well, called Run the Future, where we sort of galvanize lots of people to run with a message on their back. That's primarily to do with eating plants and its positive effect on the climate. And usually we have about maybe 20 to 30 people every weekend, and I think that's great. And I believe that will probably be in Chiang Mai and Phuket as well. So
in the
that's
next couple of months.
Yeah. These sort of real life connections that you have with people are really important. It's all well and good interacting with people online, but actually seeing and speaking to them in person, just to encourage your own values, is such an important thing to have.
But yeah, we would like to do more in Phuket, Chiang Mai. I mean, everywhere in Thailand would be. But yeah, our top secret project that we'll be launching in 6 months kind of encompasses
Thailand
everything.
in its entirety.
Well, I'll make sure to yeah, keep following you and keep me posted on those like new projects that will involve the entire of Thailand. So yeah, could you please leave us with a parting advice to young advocates who'd like to contribute in solving this ongoing issue, whether it be climate change or shifting behaviors towards alleviating, the burden that we put on planet Earth?
I think the main thing is, especially for young people, is just to start something you're passionate about. Doesn't matter where it's going. Don't think about the long term. Don't think about if it's going to make money. If you're a student, start something you're passionate about. And usually if you're passionate about it and you put time and energy into it, these things will turn into something big and kind of change making. And
people notice. I think it's important to put your passion into it, because people reflect. That passion will reflect in people.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what it is if it's a passion.
Yeah, but people will see your passion and they'll be encouraged by what you're doing, and that will encourage you. But like Joe said, start anything.
Yeah, it can be as small, as tiny as you like. Even like people think, oh, I need to get this ready before I start. I need to find this. I need to get a logo. I need to have a team. I need to blah blah blah. Just start with anything. It can be like absolutely anything. Just put pen to paper, start with something small or whatever you want to. As long as you've got passion and a bit of time to put into it, it will turn into something impactful and meaningful for you, and also meaningful for the people that you're going to be reaching as well. So don't be afraid to start.
Start talking about it as well. Start talking about what you're doing. That's important. And I think that, eat more plant-based food. One of the big ones. We can't have a parting gift or bit of advice without saying, just eat more plants. That does help.
Thank you so much, Ms. Joanna, Mr. Max, for your time and insightful answers. I'm sure myself and Hilight and all the viewers watching this will be super inspired by, and we have a lot to take away from this. So, and thank you again for watching this exclusive interview series with Root the Future. We hope you have enjoyed, and we hope that you've gained some insightful, valuable insights. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
It's great to see two very driven, inspired, enthusiastic guys such as you two. So thank you for having us.
Yeah, I think you guys teach us a thing or two. We can go back in time.
Yeah, thank you so much, by the way. We really appreciate your time, and also deeply apologize for like the technical difficulties. Yeah.
No worries.
Would it be possible for us to like maybe post some pictures from today's interview on our social media handles, whether it be like on our IG stories, and maybe tag Root the Future also?
Sure.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Hey, that sounds amazing. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day.
Thank you.